It is a good morning. If you're visiting here this morning, I am Eric. I'm the associate pastor. Pastor Vince is out still on vacation, visiting with family, going to the depths of the Grand Canyon, experiencing Texas heat, like all of you, I'm sure, would love to be in the middle of right now, right? No, yeah, this is perfect out here. But anyways, I am here this morning, and I'm so excited to be able to continue and share as we go through our series of You Fit In, your place here at Lakeside. And I hope that this time, that if you've been here over the last few weeks, that it's been encouraging. I hope that it's been challenging. Yes, that's right, encouraging and challenging. We are about to kind of pick up where we left off. And what we've been going through is kind of been talking about how we fit together, how we come together as a church, as a family, and what that looks like and how we're all involved in that process. But specifically, what it looks like as we are growing together, relating to one another. And today we're going to talk about when we serve one another. But first, I have to ask you a question. Have you ever worked? Okay, I'm hoping for 100% participation here. All right, okay. All right, we've all worked. Now, have you ever had to work when you are sick? All right, anyone work while you are sick, right? How exciting is that? Isn't that great? Like you wake up and you're like, oh man, I just feel like, I could, oh, no, I don't feel that good, but I got to go to work today, right? And you're just so excited because you know that it's going to be a great day at work, right? You can't wait to tell your boss that you're ready to do everything that they have on your agenda, right? And you're so excited. No, when you're not feeling well, you don't enjoy work, right? Because it's really hard. And do you ever get as much done when you're sick than when you're healthy? Right? You never get as much done when you're sick. And if you do, there's probably a problem with that, okay? Right? When we're not feeling well, when our bodies aren't well, we can never do as much as we normally can, and it's never exciting. It's never an enjoyable process. And so we're kind of going to look at how that plays a role into us serving here in church, because I hope that none of us are serving here while we're sick. But more importantly, I hope that as a church, we're not serving while we're sick. And we're going to kind of look at what that means. Now, we saved this last part of serving together as a family, serving. We saved it last because it kind of builds on top of what we've talked about, how we grow together and how we relate to one another. Because we can't really serve effectively. We can't serve the way that God has called us as a family if we don't have the first two pillars established in our lives. And we've been talking how, as a church, to be healthy, every person has to have three things actively happening in their life. The first one is that we're growing. Each person here is growing in God. And remember, Vince talked about how at Lakeside, growing is it's more than just gaining spiritual understanding, but it's applying that understanding to real life, right? So growing as a Christian doesn't mean you're just learning a lot of cool things. It means that you're applying that to your life and it's changing you. And then we talked about last week about what it means to truly, genuinely relate to one another. You remember I said we all have this picture of like, we come to church with our game face on, right? How many of you came to church with your game face on this morning, right? I hope it's not like the game face you had last week, because a lot of times we feel like, well, if I'm going to relate to other people when I go to church, I have to put on the smile, right? And don't get me wrong, I love seeing your smiles, okay? Standing up here right now, I would much rather see your smile than the typical sermon game face, okay? But we put on this game face and we feel like to relate to each other at church, I got to smile, I got to be happy, I got to act like everything's right. But the reality is that we've been called to relate to one another and to love one another as Jesus loved us, which means if we're relating to each other, we are actually doing the opposite of putting on a happy face, but we're being genuine. We're being open, we're being honest, we're opening ourselves to the other people in our church family. And that has to happen. We have to be able to understand that we have to relate to each other and cultivate meaningful relationships. Because if those relationships aren't being cultivated here in the church family, then we're just playing church. We're playing a nice, cute, fun game of church. But that's not what we're called to play church. We're called to be the church, to cultivate relationships. And when those relationships are being cultivated within the church family, that's when we can start to serve. We can serve together and be used and use our abilities and our gifts to share the love of Jesus, to share the gospel message to those around us, because that's our purpose, right? Do you remember in the first week, Vince talked about what is the purpose of the church? Why are we here? As much as you might love music, we're not here just to listen to worship, right? As much fun as the kids have downstairs in Lakeside Kids, they're not here just to play games. We are here. Our purpose as a church is to share the message of Jesus and the gospel and his love and to glorify God. And so we have to make sure that when we're serving, that is at the core and at the center of what we're doing. And so what I hope that we'll all understand here this morning is that Christ's body, this church, is healthy when you are serving. Now, I gotta specify something here. I gotta be clear. A lot of times when someone says like, yeah, when you're like, oh, that's like the plural you, right? And what do we do when it's a plural you and when it's like a general you? You just look to the other person, right? And you're like, he's talking to you. So go ahead, just say what you're thinking. Say, he's talking to you right now. Just tell your neighbor, look at him, do this, all right? And say, he's talking to you right now. Okay, does everyone say that? Now you turn back to that neighbor and said, no, he's talking about you. All right, because the reality is, I am talking to you. And I just thought of every person right there, okay? You specifically. Okay, not broad, you specifically. Christ's church, this body is healthy when you should feel a little uncomfortable right now, okay? Yeah, you are serving in the family. And to understand this and to see this, we're going to look into a book in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. We're going to be looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 12. As you're turning there, as you're looking there, a little background, the letter to the Corinthian church, one of the most, eye-opening, relevant books, in the Bible. And I love this book for so many reasons. One is, people who are like, the Bible's old. It's hard to relate, to like today. It's out of date. When you read through what the church in Corinth was going to, you read through it and you realize that the church today faces the same struggles. And the very same thing that Paul is talking to the church about in Corinth are the exact same things that Paul is talking to us, that God is talking to us about today. And the other thing why I like Corinthians is because it makes me realize that I'm not the only one messed up. Honestly, the church in Corinth, they had a lot of issues. They had a lot of things going on, a lot of struggles that they were working through. They were not a perfect church. And that's actually good news for us because we're not a perfect church. I know we would love to tell everyone that we are a perfect church, but the problem is there's people, right? And so we're not perfect. But the good news is there's hope. And Paul looks and explains to the church in Corinth, just as he explains to us, listen, you might not be perfect, you might have things to work through, but there's hope. And this is how the church can function as a family. And so in this particular section, starting in verse 12, he goes on to talk about gifts and abilities that people have within the church. Because at that time, there were a lot of people in the Corinthian church. They had a lot of spiritual gifts. They had a lot of talents and a lot of abilities, but they weren't using them the right way. There was some people who they wanted to be out in front. They wanted to be using their gifts so that everyone could see them. They went, hey, check me out. I got this awesome gift from God, and I'm a gift to you, right? Check it out. And meanwhile, there were other people in the church who had gifts, but they were probably a little more timid, a little more, they step back and like, well, if he's out there, maybe I'll just sit back here, because I don't think I'm really needed. And so Paul is explaining how these gifts are to be interacting with one another in the church. And so we'll start at verse 12, and this is what Paul says. He says, so for even as the body is one and yet has many members, and all the members of the body, though they are many, are one body, so also is Christ. For by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. And so Paul talks about the great diversity within the church, and yet in the midst of the great diversity that the church is made up of, there is extreme unity. There's a unity in the Spirit. And for every person who's been redeemed, who's been saved by the work of Jesus, what we just sang about in that song of It Is Finished, every person who has new life in Christ by the Holy Spirit has been brought into the family. Remember, we talked about this last week because I told you I'm your brother whether you like it or not. And so every person here has been brought together, has been unified in the midst of diversity. And he's saying that you don't have unity through uniformity, but rather in the church, unity comes in the midst of diversity. And it's a beautiful picture of what God has done and what God has created, of what he has brought together. And that's one of the most beautiful things about this church, about our family, is the diversity that's right here this morning. I mean, just look around, okay? Go ahead, look around. If only one person, then it's awkward. If everyone does it, it's not so awkward. I mean, look at the cultures. Look at everyone who's represented here. So many of us have grew up in different countries. Some of us grew up in the city. Some of us grew up in the country. Some of us we were rich. Some of us were poor. We all have different backgrounds. We all bring something so unique to the table, and this isn't a mistake. This shows the power of the gospel. This shows how powerful Christ's work is, how powerful Christ's love is. The fact that you can have a completely different background than me, and the fact that you can have completely different interests in me, the fact that you could possibly not like coffee and we can still be friends, right? Like that's the love of Jesus, right? Okay, and it goes beyond that. But we come together through what Christ has done, and that's what unifies us. And so diversity shouldn't scare us. It shouldn't make us concerned, but rather it should cause us joy. And we should be looking at different members of the body and rejoicing that we're different. And he goes on to give a pretty simple analogy of why that's a good thing. In verses 14 through 17, he says, for the body is not one member, but many. Did that catch any of you off? Did that catch any of you by surprise? That our body is not just one big hand, but we got a lot of different members, body parts. Okay? All right. If the foot says, hey, because I'm not the hand, I'm not part of the body, it is not for this reason any the less a part of the body. And if the ear says, hey, because I'm not an eye, I'm not part of the body, it is not for this reason any the less part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole were a hearing, where would the sense of smell be? I love Paul because he makes things, really simple. Really simple for you, right? What I want you to picture right now is how great it would be this morning if up here speaking was just one mouth. Or how freaky that would be. Like how weird, right? Like a body can't function because you're like, oh yeah, I talk, but then it's just there. It can't move. It can't go anywhere. It doesn't have ears, so when you're like, shut up, it's not gonna, because it can't hear you, right? Like the mouth can't go anywhere because it's just one big mouth. And Paul's like, that's not what the body is, right? And he's making the point here that you need every member, and there's no place for a part of the body to say, I'm not needed. So the hand can't be like, well, if you're not using me, going for a hike through the woods, so I'm just gonna leave. I'm just gonna, go limp, right? Because then what happens when you're attacked by a bear? You're like, oh, no. You can't do anything, right? You can't, your body, your member isn't there. It's not ready, right? And so the feet can't just be like, well, I'm not gonna work because like you're talking right now. And if I can't talk, then I guess you don't need me right now. And what would happen if my feet just gave out? It's not happening, but he's saying it can't happen. That's not how it works. No one can say, I'm not needed. And then he goes on to verses 19 through 25 to make another point. He says, so if they were all one member, where would the body be? But now there are many members, but one body. And the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. Or again, the hand to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, it is much truer that the members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary. And those members of the body which we deem less honorable, on these we bestow more abundant honor. And our less presentable members become much more presentable. Whereas our more presentable members have no need of it. But God has so composed the body, giving more abundant honor to that member which lacked, so that there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. And so at first, Paul is making the point that no one can say, I'm not needed. No member, if you are part of the church, you have no excuse and you can't say, I'm not needed. But at the same time, what he's saying here is nobody can say, I don't need help. No person in this body can say, I don't need anyone else's help. I got this on my own. Because, yeah, sure, the eye can say, yeah, I don't need any help seeing. I got this. But if it doesn't have the feet, it can't go to where it's looking. And so Paul he sees both excuses. Right? He sees the problem on both ends. There's a lot of people who just kind of say, I don't know how I fit in, or I'm not needed. I can't be used. I have no place to serve in the church family. And then on the other hand, you have people who are more than willing to serve for everyone else, and more than willing to be like, I got this on my own. I don't need any help. I would rather work alone. I would rather just, do this by myself. It's a lot easier. It's a lot cleaner. Isn't it a lot cleaner when you work alone? I remember in college having to do those, group projects. And every time the professor's like, all right, group project, I found myself, oh, great. So now I got to find 3 people that are going to let me down, right? He's like, wow, what a jerk. Yeah, well, I'm just saying, some of us can have that mentality, right? Where it's just easier if I do it on my own. And Paul's saying, no, there's no room in the church for someone to say they can do it alone. Every member needs the other. And he's saying that there is no such thing as a body part that is less significant. Whether you deem it, whether you like it or not, it doesn't matter. It's significant and it plays a role and it's important and it needs to be there. For example, you might know this about me, maybe you don't. I hate feet. I do not, most of the teens know this. They know not to get their feet near me, especially when we're camping, okay? Summer's a hard time for me because the flip-flops come out and it's just like toes are exposed and I just don't want to see that, right? We got shoes, wearing people. You're like, well, Pastor Eric, you wear sandals. Yeah, they're my feet. There are 4 pairs of feet that I can handle. My feet, my wife's, and my 2 boys, okay? Cutest feet in the world. Everyone else, I don't care about seeing your feet, okay? Because feet are smelly. They're dirty. They get warts. Some, like, the toenails, it's just, to me, it's gross, okay? Now, I say that. Is that any reason for me to be like, so we don't need feet? Wouldn't it be better? Let's just cut off our feet, right? That's insane. Because just because I don't like feet, just because feet might smell, they probably smell because they're working so hard, right? The reality is that member of the body that maybe I don't see the need for is still needed, whether we see it or not. And Paul's saying, listen, every member who comes together in the church, every member is needed. Every one of them is as significant as the other. And you can't say that one plays less of a role. In fact, it is the members that are least recognized that are needed the most. It's easy to give honor and to give a lot of attention to the members that are recognized, right? Like, think of the mouth. It's easy to recognize it. Why? Because noise just keeps coming out of it, right? Whether you like it or not, all right? It's easy for a church to recognize the mouth, right? Because where do you come on Sunday morning? What do? Right? You listen to a pastor preach. Right? And so it's easy to see that, and a lot of attention can be given to that. Or you might see the worship team. You're like, oh man, that's so awesome. Their music is so beautiful, and it's like little cherubs dancing on the piano keys. It's just like, I could never do that. And we put so much esteem on there, but what you don't realize oftentimes is everything else that happened, that had to happen for all of this to work. The sound that's coming out, right? The words behind me. I mean, how many of you realized how clean and organized the pews are that you were sitting here in this morning? Why are they organized? It's because every week before you go, you make sure to put everything back exactly as you, right? No, and I'm not saying you have to do that. But what I am saying is that somebody comes in here, and that's important, and that they come in every week, and they make sure that every pew has the cards and the Bibles and the pens and is ready to go. And these windows are clean, not because just the Seattle rain has this power to clean windows, but because somebody said, I want to make sure that these windows are clean, and it's a good representation of who we are, the carpets, right? We're going on a camping trip. Teens, you better realize that this food is not just appearing, but that somebody is putting a whole lot of work. And I mean, have you ever prepared a meal for 30 teens? That's why I asked for help, okay? I definitely knew I needed help on that one, right? But a lot of work goes into it, but you don't see it. And Paul's saying every body part, every member of the church is needed, whether you like it or not. And then, right at the center of this, we skipped over it, but we're going to go back at verse 18. Right at the center of all this, Paul says something that is crucial to our understanding of how we function and serve together. Because he says in verse 18, but now God has placed the members, each one of them in the body, just as he desired. Now, you might think that you're here because a friend invited you. You might think that you're here because that's just where Google or Bing took you as you were searching for churches. But guess what? You're here because God has placed you here. If you are here and you've been going through and you're like, I feel like I need to be a member. I want to be a part of this family. It's not by accident. It's not just because someone invited you. It's because God has put you here in this family specifically because God said, you know what, Lakeside Church, they're missing an index finger, and they got to have an index finger. And so God put one of you here this morning is an index finger, okay? I don't know who it is, but the point is that God has us all here to fit roles. And it's a role, and it's something that you can do that no one else can do. It's not a mistake. It's not by chance. God has placed each and every member here for a reason specifically. And the body can't function without that. The body can't function if not every member is functioning and working together. And then, so now we jump to the end of verse 26, and he says, so if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. If one member is honored, all the members are honored and rejoice with it. So I wanted to make a point. Nail this home, guys, okay? So what Paul is saying here about the body, just kidding. Did you feel it though? Could you feel it? How many of you here have ever hammered your thumb? All right. Now, when that happened, where you're like, it's okay, it's just my thumb, I'm good. The rest of me, I'm feeling great, I'm relaxed. Right? What happens when that thumb gets hit? The whole body just screams, right? Like, even though it's just your thumb, your legs just like, they go weak. You can't go anywhere, right? And so Paul's like, hey, listen, for the body, when we're all connected, don't think for 1 minute that if you decide to go limp, if you decide that you don't matter, that it doesn't impact the rest of the body, because it does. But on the other side, on the flip side, he says, listen, when one member is honored, the whole body rejoices. I mean, have you ever been to like one of those, you've been to the fairgrounds or the carnival or something like that? maybe not, but they have like those massage tents with the chairs, and you can sit down for like a free 5 minutes, scalp massage or something. Maybe having this haircut, my scalp is very sensitive, but it is amazing when I'm like sitting down. Like it's just a little scalp massage, right? It's just right here on my head. But do you think that it's just my head that's like, oh, I feel so relaxed? No, like how does it affect the rest of the body? It just goes loose, right? You're like, oh, this is good. I like it. I feel so good, right? When one member of the body is honored, and so the picture is that it's everyone. Everyone is impacted, good and bad. And so we have to, that's why it's crucial and key that we serve together. We have those relationships as we serve, because when we're serving together, we're also growing together. When we serve together, we grow together. Some of the biggest times where God has challenged me and has pushed me and has grown me in my walk, in my faith, it was not when I was sitting in a pew. It was not when I was sitting down or reading a book. It was when I was serving alongside somebody and they gave me encouragement, or they challenged me in some way. And so being part of the body, being connected and relating to one another helps us to grow, and it helps us to serve effectively. Because there are going to be times, as great as serving other people is, in the church, remember how I said we're not just doing this to meet a physical need, right? Because we're serving, and at the core, our purpose is to show people Jesus, right? The purpose of what we do is to glorify God. And so what that means is, if I come down to serve somebody, yeah, maybe somebody needs a glass of water, but I'm not just giving them a glass of water. Like, what did Jesus say to the woman at the well? You're looking for water, but I have something a lot better. I have something for your spirit. I have something for your soul. And so when we talk about serving and ministering to other people, we're not just meeting physical needs, we're meeting emotional needs, we're meeting spiritual needs. And guess what? That can get exhausting. That can get really difficult. That can be hard. And so when we're serving, when we're doing those things and we're tired, do you get any encouragement if you're doing it all alone? Do you find any refreshment if you're all alone? There are times when, believe it or not, I can be very exhausted at the end of Lakeside Kids. Yeah. There are those occasional moments where there's one child who just doesn't want to do anything that anyone says, right? That can be exhausting. I need the encouragement and exhortation and inspiration from other members of the body to help encourage me through that. And so Paul is saying we're all connected, we all come together, we all play a role. And so for a healthy body, everyone has to be serving. I thought of this Jenga tower. We've been called, and we're a church. And Paul and Vince even referenced on the first week that as a church that we're all kind of like stones in this building, placed together, living stones in Christ. Does anyone here like Jenga? All right, so Fabian, come on down. Brady, come on down. Who else like Jenga? Okay, Grace, come on down. You guys are nearby. So this Jenga tower is as strong as it gets right now, right? And it's as strong as it gets because each piece has been placed in the right place to guarantee the maximum strength, right? But this is what happens when we say, nah, I don't think I'm needed, right? Fabian, go ahead. Take one. Now remember, official Jenga rules. The first one you touch, you got to take it, right? Okay, so what was the first one you touched? All right, don't tip it over, otherwise the analogy is going to end really quickly. Okay. All right. But don't put it on back. Or don't put it back because what you're really saying is I actually would just rather sit here. I just want to watch that beautiful tower stand. It's beautiful, right? Because Fabian's like, I guess I have gifts, but I don't think I'm needed. Grace, go ahead. Do I have to keep it up? I would prefer, yeah. Uh-oh. Yes. No, but then Grace is like, yeah, I have gifts, but I would rather use them, somewhere else. I feel like they're needed elsewhere, but I don't want to use it in the church. So I would just rather watch it, out here. And then Brady, go ahead, go for it. Let's be daring here. I'm going to pick for you. There we go. No. Oh, you got to do it. You got to do it. That was not planned. But just like that, a church can crumble, right? Now, the reality is, and so if someone comes along and says, I'm not needed, obviously you are. And as a church, we come together and we can't just think that we're blocks that get to stay out of the building, part of it. We are all crucial to the church standing and being strong and being effective. All right, thank you, Jenga players. All right. And so we are this connected, integral building, community of believers that God has placed us together, and every member is necessary. And even though you're like, yeah, well, some of them came out and it didn't fall. Yeah, but it was now that much weaker, had that much less strength in it. And so this is so important to understand that Christ's body is healthy when you are serving, because a church is not, and hear me, a church is not as healthy as its pastor or as its program. A church is only as healthy as its members serving. A church is only as healthy as its members serving. Now, yeah, pastors, I think they're kind of important in that role, okay? I think that programs and ministries are very significant, but the health of a church is not based on one or two or three or a few people, but on how every member and body is serving. Can you imagine going to the doctor, and you just had an accident and your arm is broken, and the doctor's like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm great. My head is fine. No, but what about, no, it's okay. My head is, I can talk, I can see. So you don't need, I'm healthy as a horse. You don't need to check on me. Meanwhile, like my arm is just like dangling, all right? That's not healthy, right? Healthy isn't one part of your body is healthy. Healthy is the whole body is healthy and functioning and working together. And that's why every member, every part of this family is crucial and integral into serving. Because Jesus has called us together, because he has something. He has so many things for this family to do, to serve and to proclaim Jesus and to share his love in this community and the world around us. And he has put you here in this family to make that happen, to make that difference. But if we say we're not needed, then we're saying, I guess the body doesn't need to go that far. The body can limp along without me. And so what I want everyone here to do today is to serve in this body that God has placed you in, and to share your story, to serve in this church family and to share your story. Now, what that looks like, it's a number of things, but maybe you start simply by familiarize yourself with what are the opportunities? What can I do to serve in the church family? You have Connect cards, in your bulletins. We just have these really cool ministry cards. They're out back that you can look at, and they talk about all the ministries that are available at the church, and you can just read through those and find what are the ministries out there, opportunities for you to be a part of. How you can get involved, how you can use the abilities that you have that no one else does to be serving in this family. So first, familiarize yourself. And then another thing is talk to other people who are serving. That's why, I'll say it, SND. It's a great opportunity, because when you have dinner, when you're meeting with people, you can actually ask them and find out, hey, so have you been serving at Lakeside? What's it like? What's going on? Because let's be honest, you know what I'm going to say. It's awesome. You should do it, okay? And I really believe that. But don't you want to get get the real scoop? Don't you want to know what people are really saying, who are involved in serving, who are working with Lakeside Kids, who are working in the youth, who are involved with the women's ministry and the men's ministry and just everything? Go to the source and ask people, what is it like? And then finally, let's grab coffee. Let's talk. Call Pastor Vince. Talk to me. You can talk to someone who's involved in that ministry, but let's talk about how you can be involved. And maybe, maybe you're like, you looked at all the ministries and you're like, I still don't know. Am I really needed? Yes, you are, without a doubt. I know that because God has said it right here, that he has placed you here. So let's talk about and see where you can serve, how you fit in your place here at Lakeside. And then if you already are serving, you still have something to do this morning. Don't think you just got off the hook. If you are serving, then I want you to share with other people. I want you to share with other people in this church family of your experience and what you go through, what it's like, the highs, the lows, but talk about your story and why somebody would want to serve. Because Sunday morning, and you're all aware of this, I know a lot of you, you're really afraid when this happens, when I come up to you. Because you're like, he's either going to say, hi, good morning, or he's going to ask me to do something, right? I mean, let's be honest. I get a lot of people, they turn and they walk the other way, all right? You kind of expect me to come and be like, hey, Lindsay, we need some help. Would you mind, helping in this area? I really would love it. But now, what if someone else actually came up and invited you, right? Or, let me flip that. What if you invited someone else to come along and serve alongside of you, right? Because, Pastor Eric, he has to, ask me. But, Chris, he doesn't. That means he actually likes you. If he invites you to serve alongside of him. So if you are involved, if you are serving, share that. In a little disclaimer, I'm not saying that every person here has to do everything, okay? Not every person has to do everything. In fact, that's not good. That's not healthy. The hand is good for doing things that the hand can do. The eye is good at doing the things that eye can do. You have problems when the eye starts to catch things, right? And so we're not asking everybody to do everything, but for everybody to do something that God has called you to, because that's when the body can walk. That's when the body, God has called this body, this church right here to reach and to serve and to share the love of Jesus. But when the members aren't working, we're just dragging. We're walking with a limp. We have our arm in a cast. And we can only serve so many people. We can only do so much when the body isn't healthy. But when every member is healthy, imagine how God can use this church, this family, and this community, and this world to reach people. And I want our church family to stop limping. I want our church family to stop walking around with a cast. I want our church family to get up and to walk, to meet the needs of the people in this community. I want this church family to stand and to run, to hug the people who need to be hugged. I want to see this family reach their arms out to give water to those who are thirsty. I don't want to be dragging. I want to be running. But we can't run if we're not all together, members. So will you serve and will you share that story? Because when we're healthy, it's not a matter of maybe Jesus will use us. No. When we're a healthy family, when we're a healthy body, all serving, Jesus will use us. He will use each and every one of us in ways that we could never comprehend. And so we're going to take a few moments just to reflect on what God has called us to do. That you are called to serve in this family. And so I've asked a couple of our teens to pass out something that I just want you to take home. Everyone's going to get a little Jenga block, a little one, not a big one. And I want you to hold that Jenga block, and as the worship team just plays music, I want you to think, either A, if you're not serving, where do I fit in? How can I serve? What can I do? Don't undervalue yourself. Don't think that you're not needed, because God has placed you here, and you are. And if you are serving, whatever capacity that looks like in this church family, I want you to think, who can I share that with? Who can I bring alongside? Who can I invite to experience this joy, to experience these blessings that I get to experience? And let's just take a few minutes to reflect on how God is calling us to be a healthy family so that we can go and serve and share Jesus with others. Will you please stand? Join me. You've been placed in this church family. God has placed you here, and it is no mistake. So will you serve? Will you ask Jesus, where is it? Where is he calling you to serve? Because when you, no, not the person next to you, but when you are serving, this body is healthy and can do the work that Christ has given us. So may you be blessed as you go forth and as you serve. You serve out of love. You serve as a family. May God's blessing be upon you. Have a great day.